I want to now we get into the security basics itself, right? Like, I've been saying, like, we can do basic protection for a while. Before getting into the basics, let me clarify some piece. I work on the systems engineering. We focus on the engineering side of it. Information security teams work on outside in approach, saying like once the systems are built or during the systems are built, they're like an auditors providing suggestions. How do we build this security checklist and complying with all those things? They do the tests and other things. When we design a secure system, we consider a lot of possibilities of attacks. And from the get-go, how do we minimize any impact? That includes site reliability engineering. How do we bake in the resiliency, operational efficiency, all those things considered into place. I work onto that side. And anything basically, when I say it, like, I work on like, how do we fix rather than the regulatory side of it. So that is the information security team. Like, you might have heard this a lot of times. The most importantly, we'll go through the to-do list, right? Like, basic things about how do we address basic things, like, fill the checklist, like what do we need to do in the from the get-go. uh, Now, Azure Active Directory, uh, in the security basics, like, when the when you're building systems or implementing any cloud strategy, even if you are not doing a cloud strategy, like, just going to Office 365, the fundamental building block in any of these things is authentication and authorization system, like identity management. Azure Active Directory, short form AAD, is the root of all these things. That's what controls everything. Like, what to give, which resource you want to get access to, how to control passwords. All those things are controlled by Azure Active Directory. First and the foremost, my take on it has been, and we have been successfully proved that, and now the Microsoft also agrees, and all the cloud big guys agree, is minimize password changes. 5 years ago, the approach has been, let's change the password, let's force the password as soon as possible, like, 60 days, 1 month. You're just frustrating users. Do not ask them to change the password. Have them a password they can remember and they don't give it to anybody. Also, minimize number of passwords in your system. Less number of passwords means less things to remember, so they don't write it anywhere, so that people actually, and people don't need to come up with guesswork passwords, right? They can have, in our lives, like, you only have few things which are very private to you, right? Like, you don't tell anybody. Most of the things you go into discussions. So keep the passwords, number of passwords limited to that scope within those secrets, right? Now, password complexity rules is another area where it's messy. It gets really messy. And we have seen that, like, again and again. But instead, there are a lot of things which actually simplify the increases of security is fewer password changes, fewer complexity rules. You can put in one rule I would suggest is how long a password can be, right? Um, and the second one is make a MFA, multi-factor authentication, is make it a device. Like, for example, I have all my passwords are passwordless. Like, most of mine is passwordless. That means it ties to my phone. You can enable that. That is very secure. That means anybody try to get in, you need your phone. They need to have a physical access to your phone. And you always have, like, it goes into two-factor there, like, you have a key installed on your phone, and then you need to enter a PIN on your phone. So you're actually limiting the passwords, and it makes things very secure. It's part of the multi-factor authentication available on Azure Active Directory. Enable that. Now, plan, Azure Active Directory plan is essential, right? Like, most people go on basic, and basic suffices. But like in any organization which is geographically distributed, I would basically advise go with a P2. and periodically review your logs, saying like where is the actual authentications coming from. That's important. We can contextualize these things as well. And now integrated authentication is another great way. So it's like, you join your machine, that means to your domain, Azure Active Directory domain, that basically authorizes that device specifically, and you can enforce policies like what software can stay on that software. It's pretty standard practice from before. There are some changes now from the Windows Active Directory. Now we are moving on to the Azure Active Directory Cloud Manager Identity model, which helps a lot. Uh, Geofence is an interesting part. Most of us live in a geographic boundary, right? Like, we hardly travel. For most of the office workers, people don't travel, right? So you can basically limit your authentication perimeter geographically and deny all the requests which are coming outside. This is pretty standard in credit card industry. We have implemented few also in the credit card industry for authorization of like when the credit card can process. We can apply the same logic into authentication side, which is more important than the actual credit card transactions, by the way. And there are easier, simple tools, and you can build your own as well. As part of the conditional access, you can actually set up the rules saying like, unless the person is meant for like in a sales guy traveling, exclude those, and other ones like you basically limit saying like an authorization is limited to within the geographic zone. Healthcare, this helps a lot. By the way, it significantly reduces your attack surface. And the conditional access, I said, like, what application they are trying to use this authorization sign in, right? That you can actually implement the conditional access is pretty simple as part of the Azure Active Directory. It comes standard with Azure Active Directory. P2 provides a lot more AI-backed analytics on that, and you can do a rule-based triggers, denials, so you can go with that. The device registration policies is the integrated authentication. Those go hand in hand, saying like certain applications, like where you store sensitive data, use the conditional access to limit trusted devices only. Like means you can have your employee's personal device, you can still trust it, but it should not be automatic trust. Like an employee says, like, I have these 3 devices, let them register that.
For more information, click on the link below or visit databrackets.com.